Richard Nixon was the 37th President of the United States. His term lasted from 1969 until 1974. He was born on January 9th of 1913 in Yorba Linda, California. He went to Duke University School of Law and graduated in 1937. After college, Nixon returned to California to practice law. He served as a Republican in the House of Representatives. For 8 years, he was the Vice President of the United States under Dwight Eisenhower. He lost the run for president in 1960, John F. Kennedy, and 2 years later lost the run for governor of California to Edmund Brown. Most people thought Nixon's political career was over, but in 1968 he decided to run for president. Richard Nixon defeated Hubert Humphreys and was elected president on November 5th, 1968. During his presidency, Nixon improved relations with the USSR and China. In 1972, Nixon traveled to Beijing and Moscow and reduced tension with China and the USSR. During Nixon's trip to Moscow, his summit meetings, Russian leader Leonid Brezhnev produced a treaty to limit strategic nuclear weapons.
Another one of Nixon's most acclaimed achievements was world stability. Nixon ended American fighting in Vietnam in January of 1973. Nixon announced an accord with North Vietnam to end the American involvement in the war. Nixon proposed the National Maximum Speed Law as part of the 1974 Emergency Highway Energy Conservation Act. This limited the maximum speed limit to 55 miles per hour. It was later modified in 1987 to allow a speed of 65 miles per hour on certain roads. During Nixon's presidency, the United States astronauts became the first to land on the moon on July 20th, 1969. However, the president did not want to continue funding NASA. After many project cancellations, Nixon finally approved a cooperative program between NASA and the Soviet space program in 1972. Nixon decided to run for a second term, and in July of 1972, he was nominated at the Republican National Convention. He was re-elected on November 7, 1972, in one of the largest landslide elections votes ever in America.
The name Watergate refers to the Watergate Hotel in Washington, D.C. This hotel housed the office of the Democratic National Committee. On June 17, 1972, the whole hotel was burglarized by 5 men who entered the hotel. They wanted to get information about the Democratic burning party. Burglars were arrested by police at 2:30 in the morning. Investigations revealed that the burglars were employed by the committee to re-elect Republican Nixon. Nixon denied all allegations. In February of 1973, the U.S. Senate established a select committee on presidential campaign activities. March and April of 1973 saw the start of the unraveling of the cover-up for Watergate. 4 of Nixon's top officials resigned. There was proof of their involvement in the scandal because tapes of Nixon's discussing the event were discovered. A gap of about 18 minutes was found to be missing from the tapes. The House Judiciary Committee opened impeachment hearings against the president on May 9, 1974. Many people had lost their support of the president and wanted to see him impeached. Because the tapes created wide controversy on Nixon's part, he resigned on August 9, 1974.
Nixon did resign before he could be impeached. In his resignation speech, Nixon stated that he was resigning for the good of the country. However, he maintained the fact that he had no part in wrongdoing. He was still charged with the obstruction of justice, abuse of power, and contempt of Congress. The term Watergate now has become synonymous with the abuse of power. After his resignation, Nixon flew home to California. Many people still wanted to see him punished for his deeds. However, the White House contracted a pardon, which Nixon was reluctant to accept. On September 8th of 1974, President Ford granted Nixon a full, free, and absolute pardon, which ended any possibility of an indictment. In December of 1974, Nixon began planning his comeback in the public eye despite considerable ill will against him in the U.S. Throughout the 1980s, Nixon maintained an ambitious schedule of speaking engagements in writing, traveled and met with many foreign leaders. He died in Manhattan of a stroke complications on April 22, 1994.